Today, we're going to talk about 5 datasets that you should never use data science job application and what are some of the good alternatives. I'll include the links to all the datasets in the description, so feel free to download them, give it a try, and let's go. Number 1, the Titanic Dataset. Well, the Titanic Dataset is what we call a toy dataset. It's a good conversation opener to talk about the 5 Chinese on the ship or Jack and Rose who are not there. Apart from that, there's nothing much that will excite your manager during an interview. Also, the Titanic Dataset is overused. If your manager is an experienced senior, he would have seen many job applications using this dataset. And there aren't many challenges for these except some of the missing values in the age columns, and any classification algorithm will give you a decent result. And therefore, this won't make you stand out among other job applicants because 90% of what you did is similar to the others. Number 2, the Iris dataset. This dataset is probably the most widely used dataset, especially among the R users. It's a dataset from a paper published back in 1936 to classify the iris plant. It is so popular that your interviewer might fall asleep as soon as they see it. I'm not kidding. Iris is a tiny dataset, especially in today's context. It contains only 3 species of the iris flower and their length and width of petal and sepal. That's all. There are only 50 data points for each species, so you can imagine how challenging it is working with such a small and clean dataset. Another problem is that it's really hard to relate the iris dataset to a real-world data problem because the data used in the business world are more complex and we don't perform classification just by using the length and width only. Number 3, MNist handwritten digits. The MNist handwritten digits dataset gained its popularity past few years when deep learning was very hot. It's like the hello world in computer vision. Most neural networks or deep learning framework will use this dataset in their example and tutorials because that will give us an accuracy of 98 and 99%. And this is the problem. When your accuracy is that good, you might give the interviewer a false impression that, wow, the machine learning is so powerful. And he will be disappointed when your other models don't perform that well when using another dataset. Number 4, the cats and dogs dataset. The cats and dog dataset is another popular computer vision dataset. We initially used it in the CAPTCHA to detect bots, and nowadays we see them more in the TensorFlow and Keras tutorials just to teach a machine how to differentiate a cat and a dog apart. And that's all. Like the previous datasets, I find it hard to turn the cat and dog classification problem into a real-world business problem, unless you are using it for the meme side or video side because you want to push more cats video to the users and you know the internet loves it. Object detection and recognition are nothing as simple as detecting cats and dogs. Instead, we want to spot defects in factory production, count cars on the road, or recognize people in a photo. Number 5, the cars dataset. This is an ancient dataset that has been used in many of the Introduction to Data Mining, Introduction to Data Science courses. The data was extracted from the 1974 Motor Trend US magazine. It contains fuel consumption and 8 other aspects of a car performance, like miles per gallon, weight, the years of production, and horsepower. And the dataset is for 30 car brands like Ford, Toyota, Volkswagen, etc. And the problem with this dataset is that it's really old. It's from 1974. It's even older than me. The chances are you won't see these cars on the road anymore, and some of the brands already retired like Pontiac, AMC, or Datsun. I bet some of you didn't even hear it before. The original data problem from this dataset is for us to predict fuel consumption using the regression technique, but that is not an exciting question anymore. If you are applying for the data science job in the car industry, the data that we use for prediction today is a lot more than cylinders, horsepower, and acceleration. So I wouldn't recommend using this dataset in your job applications, or at least look for an updated version. Before we go into the datasets that you can use in your job application or portfolio, I have to tell you this. Don't get me wrong, these datasets are suitable for practice and self-learning, and there are a lot of tutorials using these datasets to teach machine learning concepts and algorithms. I don't recommend using these datasets for a job application because, number 1, these data are overused. It's hard to come by a new angle that will excite your audience. Number 2, the dataset is very small. This means it's hard for us to even split the dataset into a training set and testing set just to check for overfitting and bias. Number 3, the data is outdated. Some of the features are not even used in modern approaches anymore. And lastly, it's hard to relate these datasets with real-world business problems. You better just find some datasets that are related to your industry. And here are the 5 alternate datasets that you can use in your job applications and portfolio to make you a stronger candidate. Number 1, the video game sales dataset. Video game is always a hot topic, especially with the release of new consoles like PS5, Nintendo Switch, and also the rise of esports. This dataset contains features like the year, genre, platform, and sales in different regions. It has about 16,500 records, which is a good size for an insightful analysis. You may use this dataset for descriptive analytics to analyze a publisher business, spot the pattern of which genre is becoming popular, or forecast the sales of a specific region. Since video games and sales are something that most people would understand, they would have no problem relating it to their own business problems in products or sales. Number 2, the TripAdvisor hotel reviews. This is a straightforward dataset with only 2 columns, the review of a hotel and this rating. But this doesn't mean that this is a boring dataset. In fact, our students from the Data Science Uncut Bootcamp love this dataset. Why? Because even though it has only 2 columns, we can use it to answer interesting business questions like, what are the key concerns when a guest picks a hotel? Which aspect has the most impact on a hotel's rating? And how does the customer's emotion affect their rating? Since the tourism industries are recovering from the pandemic, we expect hotels to start picking up their businesses. So, if you're applying for a job in the hotel or service industry, this is an excellent dataset for you to showcase your ability to analyze and study customer behavior. It is also good for showcasing your skills in analyzing unstructured data using natural language processing, text mining, topic modeling, and sentiment analysis. Number 3, the Telco Churn dataset. This is a dataset from IBM for us to study the customer behavior of a telco company. We can use this dataset to predict which customers are going to unsubscribe. It has 7,000 rows and 21 features about our customers, like their gender, are they on a contract, how long is their contract, their monthly charges, payment methods, etc. This dataset is suitable for 3 types of analytics. For descriptive analytics, we can run an EDA to learn the behavioral patterns of our customers based on their demographics and services. For predictive analytics, we can use it to predict the customers who will unsubscribe and also identify why did they make the decision. And then during the prescriptive analytics stage, we can then try out different marketing tactics using offers to retain the customers. This dataset contains a good mix of discrete and continuous data, and also we can use it to write SQL queries to retrieve different subsets of data. Number 4, the Ames House dataset. This dataset is for us to predict the house price in Ames, Iowa. It contains 3,000 data points and 79 features, like the lot size, the year the house is built, the interior and exterior quality of the house, number of bathrooms, number of bedrooms, etc., which is quite comprehensive for a real estate dataset. On top of forecasting the house prices, there are many ways that we can use this dataset to showcase our data massaging skills, like normalizations, outlier detection, removing not useful columns, combine multiple features into a new features. Number 5, social media data. Social media websites like Twitter and Facebook, they usually provide an interface that allows us to download tweets and Facebook statuses using API. All you have to do is go to their developer site, sign up for an account to get the tokens, and you will be able to start collecting your own data. For instance, I downloaded 10,000 tweets from Twitter that are related to Najib and Anwar debate and also the fall of Luna Coin. If you are into finance, you can also download stock prices data from Yahoo Finance. And if you are looking for images and how to script them from Instagram, and if you are looking for images, you can follow my tutorial here to download pictures from Instagram for classification. You have the freedom to choose the topic that you want and collect the amount of training data that is sufficient to build a good model. During the job application, you can also show off your skills related to data engineering, data pre-processing, which will add extra points that will impress your interviewer. Go ahead and download this dataset and give it a try. For those datasets that I don't recommend using it in your job applications, they are still good for beginners to practice, and there are a lot of tutorial videos and blog posts out there showing you how to use them in using different algorithms and models. And for the datasets that I recommend, they will certainly boost your confidence and impress your interviewers. Of course, you still need to be familiar with them and able to build models with decent accuracy, but most importantly, you need to tell a good story using the data and articulate your ideas when presenting them. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.